on right triangles. This is kind of, you've seen everything that we're doing today in geometry, so it shouldn't be too bad. We're going to start with this first theorem here. It says the triangle inequality theorem, the sum of any two sides is greater than the third side. So if I add up two sides of a triangle, it has to be bigger than the third side, or it's not a triangle. So if I look at my first triangle, let's say I have a triangle, let's see here, and my three sides are 7 inches, 2 inches, and 12 inches. Is this possible to have a triangle with these dimensions? So I'm just going to start adding up the sides. So 2 plus 12 has to be bigger than the third side, which is 7. And 2 plus 12 is 14, so that works. My other sides, let's say I have 7 and 12. 7 and 12, whoops, has to be bigger than that third side, which is 2. And that is true. And then my only other option would be 7 and 2. So 7 and 2 has to be bigger than 12, and that is false because 7 plus 2 is 9. So because that does not work for all three sides, this is not a possible triangle. So this is not a triangle. If I have the sides 4 feet, 6 feet, and 8 feet, 4 feet, 6 feet, and 8 feet, would that be a triangle? Well, if I have 4 plus 6, is that greater than 8? Yes, because it's 10. If I have 4 plus 8, that has to be greater than that third side, which is 6, and that's true. And then my only other pair would be 4 or 6 and 8, and that has to be greater than 4, which that is true. So this is a triangle. Okay, that is a triangle. That's me just abbreviating. So moving on, everyone knows the Pythagorean theorem. You did it a lot in geometry. We know that if it's a right triangle, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And all that comes from a and b are the legs of your triangle. C is the hypotenuse. And the hypotenuse is always the biggest side, and it's always across from the biggest angle. But if a squared plus b squared equals c squared, then that is a right triangle. What you probably don't remember is how to decide if it's an obtuse triangle or an acute. Obtuse, remember, is a triangle that has one obtuse angle, so something like this. Acute would be when all three angles are smaller than 90 degrees. So all three angles are acute. If it's an obtuse triangle, then a squared plus b squared is smaller than c squared. Okay, a squared plus b squared is smaller than c squared. And I just remember that it is going to be a lot bigger, that hypotenuse will. So that hypotenuse has to be a lot bigger in order for it to be an obtuse triangle. Okay, so on the flip side of that, if a squared plus b squared, those legs, are greater than c squared, that is going to give you an acute triangle. So looking at this triangle up here that we said existed, if I have 4 feet and 6 feet and 8 feet, we've already determined that that's a triangle, but what type of triangle is that? Well, I know that this is my hypotenuse because it's bigger, so 4 squared plus 6 squared, what is that? That would be 16 plus 36, which would end up being, I believe, 52. 8 squared is 64. Okay, so a squared plus b squared is less than c squared, so this would be an obtuse triangle. Okay, so that is an obtuse triangle. One more like that. Let's say I have square root of 3. One side is 2 square roots of 5. And the third side is biggest, so that's my hypotenuse, is 8. So when I square the square root of 3, I'm just going to get 3 plus. When I square this, remember I got to square that 2 also, so I'm going to have 4 times 5. And then on this side, I'm going to square the 8, and I'm going to get 64. So this would be 3 plus 20, which is 23, and that is less than 64. So again, we are dealing with an obtuse triangle. Okay, so had it been greater than, it would have been an acute triangle. Had it been equal to, it would have been a right triangle. Okay, moving on, there's 2 special right triangles, and the ACT loves these questions. The first one we're going to look at is 45, 45, 90. So remember the sum has to equal 180. Well, on a 45, 45, 90 triangle, here's my 90 degrees, this is 45, and this angle is 45. And in geometry, you learned that because these 2 angles are the same, these 2 sides are the same. So we're going to call those just x. So the hypotenuse, I'm going to use the Pythagorean theorem to find that hypotenuse. We're going to use the letter c for that. So x squared plus x squared has to equal c squared. So I can combine those because they're alike, and that becomes 2x squared equals c squared. Now, I want my hypotenuse, I want just c, so I'm going to square root both sides. And c equals, now, remember, I can't do anything with square root of 2, so that's going to stay in there. But if I take the square root of x squared, those are going to cancel each other out. And so x comes out of there, and that's the square root of 2. So my hypotenuse is x square roots of 2. So if my sides are 5, both of these legs would equal 5. My hypotenuse is then 5 square roots of 2. If both of my legs are 3, then my hypotenuse would be 3 square roots of 2. Okay, so we'll look at a little bit more at that here in just a little bit, but that right there is something that you need to remember. Okay, now 30, 60, 90 is a little bit more difficult, but it's not too bad. So here's my 90-degree angle. My hypotenuse is across from it. 30 degrees, that leg is going to be shorter. Okay, so we're going to call that our short leg. 60 degrees, this leg is our long leg. Okay, and then again, we have our hypotenuses here. Now, to get you started, I will tell you that your short leg is going to be your x. Your hypotenuse is twice that. Okay, so we need to find the long leg. So I'm going to use the letter b for that. So for the Pythagorean theorem, I've got x squared plus b squared equals, when I square 2x, I'm going to get 4x squared. Okay, now I can't combine this side because they're not alike, but I want to get b, so I'm going to subtract x squared. Well, when I subtract x squared, 4x squared minus x squared is going to be 3x squared. Now I'm going to square root it, and just like over here, that x is going to come out of there. So b equals x square roots of 3. So my long leg here is x square roots of 3. And that is a picture that we need to remember also. So if my short leg is 5, then my hypotenuse would be 5 times 2, which is 10. And my long leg would be 5 square roots of 3. So if my short leg is 2, my hypotenuse will be 4. My long leg will be 2 square roots of 3. Okay, so let's kind of look at some examples and then we are done. So first example of these, let's say I have a 45, 45, 90 triangle. So here's my 90, here's my 45, and this leg is the square root of 3. So I want the other 2 sides. Well, I know by default that this leg has to be the same, so square root of 3. And according to my math and my picture up here, the hypotenuse is whatever the leg is times the square root of 2. So my hypotenuse is going to be square root of 3, because that's my leg, times the square root of 2. So my hypotenuse is the square root of 6. Okay? So, moving on. Let's say I have another 45, 45, 90. So remember, my legs are the same. But on this one, I'm going to give you my hypotenuse. All right? Now, remember, in my original picture, this is x, this is x, this is x square roots of 2. So basically, I need to find x. So I'm going to come over here and do a little bit of math. Okay, and again, my hypotenuse was that x square roots of 2, so we're going to divide by square root of 2. Now remember, we're going to rationalize. I'm going to work backwards, so I'm going to multiply that by square root of 2 over square root of 2. So I am left with 5 square roots of 2 over 2 equals x, because those cancel. So both of my sides are 5 square roots of 2 over 2. Okay? And again, they are the same because it's an isosceles triangle. Both of those angles are 45, so both of these legs will be the same as well. Okay? So let's say I have a 30, 60, 90. So 30, 60, 90. So this is 60, so this will be my longer leg, my shorter leg, and my hypotenuse. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give you my longer leg is the square root of 5. So I need to find my short leg and my hypotenuse. Now remember, this is the long leg. The long leg, if we go look at our picture up here, the long leg is x square roots of 3. So I know that this has to equal x square roots of 3. So I want to find x. So I'm going to take the square root of 5 and I'm going to divide by the square root of 3. And again, we're going to rationalize that. And I'm left with square root of 15 over 3, which will not reduce. But we just found x, and in our picture, remember, x is our short leg. So we just found the short leg right here to be square root of 15 over 3. Now remember, our hypotenuse, if I go back and look up here, my hypotenuse is whatever the short leg is, the x, times 2. It's twice as big. So I'm going to take 15, or square root of 15 over 3, and I'm going to multiply it by 2. So all I end up with is 2 square roots of 15 over 3. And again, make sure things are reduced. They won't reduce anymore. So my hypotenuse is 2 square roots of 15 over 3. Okay? Now, let's do another one just to practice. All right, so I'm going to call this 30 degrees. So this is my short leg, this is my long leg, this is my hypotenuse. And this time I'm going to give you a hypotenuse is 4 square roots of 2. Okay, now remember the hypotenuse is 2x. It's twice the short leg. So I know this side right here is 2x. So if I want to find x, I'm just going to divide by 2. So when I divide by 2, x, I can reduce here, it becomes 2 square roots of 2. So we just found this short leg is 2 square roots of 2. Now, to find the long leg, I'm going to take the short leg and I'm going to multiply it by square root of 3. So we're going to take that short leg, which is 2 square roots of 2, and we're going to multiply it by the square root of 3, and we're going to get 2 square roots of 6. So my long leg is 2 square roots of 6. Okay? If you have any other questions, guys, please feel free to email me. You can also Google special right triangles, and I'm sure you can find plenty of other things. So I hope you guys have a good day.